A tearful confession from a former Trump voter during a live congressional hearing. I was duped. I was stupid. I made a mistake, is what the Trump voter said. I regret my decision. Also, this Trump voter is a veteran. He served our country courageously in Panama, and his wife was recently disappeared by the ICE, Border Patrol, Gestapo. His wife lived in Ireland. She's been here for a very long time, since she was 11, and she's now been in a detention center in Kentucky for over 4 months. She was placed in solitary confinement for having a cup of noodles, and she is now suffering there, and he is bringing attention to his story. He's also a part-time minister. His name is Jim Brown. He appeared before a congressional hearing where he talked about being duped, feeling stupid, feeling like an idiot as a result of voting for Trump. Then he attended another hearing that just took place this week as well, with Congressmember Magaziner from Rhode Island telling his story as Kristi Noem watched. The first clip I want to show you is Jim Brown, and this is where Mr. Brown talks about feeling stupid. Let's play this clip.
Voted for President Trump.
Yes, sir.
Why did you vote for him?
Because I was an idiot. 8% of the evangelical Christian people were lied to, if you really want to know the truth, and that's exactly what happened. They said criminal, and I believe criminals need to be off the street.
I just want to make sure people watching this understand who you are.
My wife and I, when we don't work, we're ministers. We help the needy. That's what we do.
And I think it's important that we all recognize that people like Mr. Brown made mistakes. It may be hard for us to understand, knowing Donald Trump's background and past, how you can vote for that guy. But I think we're seeing a lot more people like Mr. Brown right now as well. Now, I want to show you what went down in the congressional hearing from this past week, as Kristi Noem was forced to look at Mr. Brown, knowing that she threw his wife in a detention center where she's currently suffering, and she's been there since the past 4 months. Here, play this clip.
Madam Secretary, the man behind you, please stand up, sir. His name is Jim Brown from Troy, Missouri. He is a Navy combat veteran who served our country in the Gulf War. He's married to a woman named Donna, who came to our country legally from Ireland when she was 11 years old. She has lived here for 48 years. Because of you, Jim's wife, Donna, has been in prison for the last 4 months. She did not come here illegally, and she has never committed any crime other than writing 2 bad checks totaling $80 10 years ago. She is currently in prison and facing deportation. Ms. Noem, will you thank Mr. Brown for his service to our country?
Thank you, Mr. Brown, for your service to our country.
Now, what possible explanation can there be for locking up his wife for 4 months when she has committed no crime other than writing a couple of bad checks for $80?
Sir, it is not my prerogative, my latitude, or my job to pick and choose which laws in this country get enforced.
You have broad discretion as the secretary. You can issue parole, you can do all kinds of things, but you're choosing not to. Will you commit again to just reviewing Donna's case and reuniting this combat veteran with his beloved wife, who also loves this country?
I will review the case.
And now I want to bring in that Democratic Congressmember, Seth Magaziner from Rhode Island, and we're also joined by Jim Brown. And Jim was at that hearing yesterday. We saw that Jim's wife is currently in a detention center in, I believe, Kentucky, where she's been locked up for several months. Congressman, we're going to speak to Jim in a bit, but I want to start with you first, and that kind of cross-examination that you did of Kristi Noem that everybody's talking about. Walk us through what was going on there, and remind our audience, we showed the clip at the outset, but you had the gentleman who was abroad right now, who had never lived here, and then you had Jim there, whose wife was who's been locked up, in this detention center, who was here since she was 11 years old.
Yeah, well, fundamentally, we're trying to make the point that the Trump administration, Kristi Noem, Donald Trump, they don't know how to tell the difference between the good guys and the bad guys. That was the point. By all means, if there are people here who are violent criminals, traffickers, that kind of thing, get them out. But of course, that's not what the Trump administration is doing. The vast majority of what they've been doing is locking up and deporting honest, hardworking people, children, U.S. citizens, people, all to hit this arbitrary target, this quota that Stephen Miller has sent of trying to deport 3,000 people a day. And I think the way that we change public opinion on this issue is by humanizing it and by telling stories of real people who've been impacted. So that was the goal yesterday. And, as my team and I were talking about it, there's a lot of different angles you could take. We thought about sharing a bunch of stories of ways that children have been impacted, for example, by Kristi Noem and the Trump administration. But we decided to focus on veterans and military families because, again, I think it's an important way that we just humanize what's going on. So yesterday, during my 5 minutes that I had to question the secretary, we brought in 3 people, all either veterans or actually all veterans. The first was a man named Sejun Park, who is a Army veteran, combat veteran, was shot twice for our country in Panama in 1989. Like many military veterans, he struggled afterwards with some PTSD and substance abuse. He had some minor offenses on his record, but has been clean and sober for over a decade. She just deported him to Korea, a country that he hasn't lived in since he was 9 years old. Jim, who you'll hear from in a second, combat veteran, real American patriot. His wife, Donna, who is a legal resident of this country, has lived here peacefully and patriotically for over 40 years, has been unjustly locked up as well. And then finally, Alejandro Barranco, a U.S. Marine veteran. His father, Narcisco, is a landscaper who was on camera very violently assaulted by ICE, detained, facing deportation. He's the father of 3 U.S. Marines, including Alejandro. So our goal was to just make Secretary Noem come face to face with the human consequences of what she's doing in hopes of helping these 3 individuals with their cases, but also making the wider point that the administration is not doing a good enough job separating the good guys from the bad guys and focusing immigration enforcement in the way that they really should.
Bring in Jim right now. Jim Brown, your wife, Donna, has been in this detention center for a long time, several months. I want you to talk about what you're going through, but we saw you in the audience area during that hearing as Kristi Noem turned around and looked at you. You didn't really get an opportunity to speak to her at that hearing. Congressman Magaziner did an incredible job, I think, channeling what you and your wife and others are going through. What would you want to say to her, though, if you were given the opportunity to speak with her?
Well, I was going to ask her several questions, actually. She gets on TV and brags about the criminal illegal immigrants that she's going after and all the criminals and the worst of the worst. And that's actually a quote. She said that it was the worst of the worst. And that's absolutely not true. I've got 4 or 5 cases that my wife's in detention with that aren't the worst of the worst as well. And it's just ridiculous what they're doing with innocent people that should not be in jail at all.
So, Jim, I want to talk to you about that because when you've been able to speak with your wife, first let's talk about what you just said there, though, about other cases. These are other people who were with her in that detention center, and she's sharing stories with you that it's not unique to her experience, that there are people that she's with who are similarly locked up for months and months and months who have not committed serious crimes or crimes at all. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, there's, for example, there's a French lady in there that actually was coming up to the immigration counter, and she was arrested for getting her green card. She actually went through the procedure, and they arrested her because, for no reason, really. She's actually sitting in detention because she was applying for a green card, which is absolutely legal. There's a case in there where this gal is from Venezuela that has heart problems, and she has heart valve problems. They haven't given her the medical attention she needs, and she's been in there for 3 months now. There's a case from a lady from Guatemala that they haven't even given a hearing to, and her next hearing is not until October of 2026. So that's just a couple. So there's a lot of things going on that are just atrocious. I'm following, since I went real public, I've got several other people that are in similar situations. There's a guy that had a minor drug charge that was 17 when he got to charge, and he's 40, and he went across the Canadian border, and they locked him up. And that one's actually going to Magaziner's office.
So, Congressman Magaziner, if you hear those other stories now, when you based on that cross exam, you're basically viewed nationally now as the go-to Congress member, kind of channeling these stories and bringing it to the forefront. I mean, before we did this interview, Jim told us he's from Missouri. He's been reaching out, and your office, though, right away was really the first that said, "Let me tell your story, let me channel it." Tell us, as you hear these stories about others, what are you planning to do there?
Well, first of all, let me just really commend Jim and Sejun and Alejandro for their courage. There were a number of other people who we could have brought to that hearing yesterday. We had to limit it to just these three because I only had 5 minutes. But also, frankly, there are a lot of people who are caught up in all of this who, for their own reasons, don't feel that they can speak out. It's a tremendously courageous thing that these guys have all done. What I would say to others is reach out to your member of Congress. If your member of Congress is not friendly or not helpful, then feel free to reach out to others. The best thing to do is to make sure you have a good lawyer, and then we do our very best to help anyone who comes our way. But it's a really tragic and challenging situation.
Jim, how's your wife doing? I mean, on a day-to-day, what's her, obviously not good. She's in a detention center for 4 months, so it's probably horrific, but her spirits, what does she do there in a day? How does she describe the conditions to you? Like, what's her life like there? How frequently can you communicate with her?
Yes. When we first started this journey, I guess you would say, we were talking about she had pointed out all the discrepancies with toilets being clogged, and they made her eat a pill off the floor. They did all kinds of different things. And then they put her in solitary confinement for a week because she ate a cup of ramen. All kinds of nonsense. But because of retaliation reasons, I haven't heard a lot in the last month and a half or so, because they will absolutely retaliate against you. I've called the jailer there for a while. When it first started, the jailer, they would send me straight to the jailer after a while because they knew I was going to say something. And he basically, my wife filed complaints against him and whatever, and I said something about that to him, and he said that both of us were lying to him, that his jail would not ever be that way.
What happens next? I mean, she's been there, for 4 months? I mean, is there a day that's set?
We have a hearing on the 18th of December.
Got it. And I know everybody here at this network and across the country have heard your story, are thinking about you and thinking about all the other people too, who Congressman Magaziner highlighted, and all the other people who have been targeted as well by ICE and Border Patrol, whose stories have not been told, but who are out there. I mean, you talk about your wife having to eat pills off the floor with clogged toilets. Sounds like these conditions are worse than what exists in prisons. Solitary confinement for eating ramen noodles. Before we go, Congressman Magaziner, what do you want the people to know? We've got 6 million subscribers. You've been able to tell that story. I mean, we posted your video on TikTok, and I think it's got close to 10 million views on TikTok, that interaction alone. What do you want our audience to know?
You know, what I would say is that, like, storytelling matters. What we have seen from the administration, as terrible as it is, what they're doing, when there is a public uproar, they will back off. They're not sending people to El Salvador anymore. They closed down Alligator Alcatraz. They're not doing these things out of the goodness of their heart, but they're doing it because they know bad PR when they see it. And so in an environment where Democrats are in the minority in Congress, where the Supreme Court is not our friend either, the best thing that we can do is elevate the stories of good, decent, innocent people who've been caught up in the administration's cruelty. And so, Ben, I want to thank you and the Meidas team for elevating these stories. I want to thank Jim again for his courage, and everyone else who's willing to speak up. Let's keep it going. And, you know, if we make a difference, even on the margins, that saves lives. And I do believe that when we get to the midterm elections next year, we're going to be in a position to make a big game-changing difference.
I want to thank you, Congressman Magaziner, your leadership. Jim, thanks for sharing your story, and please convey, the heavy heart that we have to your wife, and that our thoughts. And I wish I could give you more than that, but we'll do our best by making sure people can hear about your story. They'll go out to you and your family and everyone else.
Well, I want to thank you, Congressman. I literally phoned 100 people when this first started. 100 senators and congressmen, and Magaziner stepped up, and Senator Duckworth did too. I will give her that, but I'll tell you that I appreciate that.
No, I appreciate you, Jim.
When your own state turns their back on you, it's something else. And it's funny because I think they have a script that they read when they get questions about how vile the system is. I believe they have a script that they read because all of them had the same answer, which was, I don't deal in legal matters. And that's that. We have due process, and which is nonsense as well. That's a whole nother subject. Yeah.
We appreciate you sharing the story. Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.